Warning, we have Karens. That is right. I have not done some Karen stories in a long time, but you guys requested that I bring it back. It's been pretty nice not having Karen energy on this channel, but let's bring in some spice. The Karens are back. These are real stories from people who had interactions with real life Karens. It's like a celebrity sighting. First story, how dare you ask for space after we canceled on your birthday last minute? We want to bring the present now. I feel like you told the whole story with just the title. My husband and I host a tabletop game on a semi-regular basis. Until a few months ago, that included Joe and his girlfriend, Carrie. Before I go into what happened, let me give you a little background. My husband and I tried our best to be kind for Joe's sake, but Carrie is a difficult person. She thinks she is entitled to say and do whatever she wants, regardless of the consequences, without comment. At one point, my husband said it's important to consider how our actions affect others, and she responded with, "That's your opinion." In the tabletop game that we were playing, whenever we started strategizing, her character would get bored and wander off to get attention by doing plot derailing things like breaking the law in front of the town guards. One way to ensure that she brought something up all the time was to just say no. She often brought up playing at their house, which was 30 minutes out of the way. She convinced Joe to go on a divorce show with her. No, they have never even been engaged. Then kept suggesting that my husband and I could also get on TV and make a couple $100. And she couldn't understand why we weren't interested. Worst of all, she often made tone-deaf jokes about topics multiple people in the room had trauma with. Carrie sounds like an interesting character. Now, Joe is never the most punctual person in the world, but Carrie magnified that. They asked us to move the game to a weekday evening so Carrie could have the weekend for her occasional freelance work as a clown. Even with the move, they frequently canceled with little notice, often because Carrie had whoopsie planned something and forgot to put it on the calendar again. When they did show up, they would be over an hour late, always for very important reasons, like she wanted McDonald's instead of pizza that we had already ordered. It became such an issue that we moved the start time to later. So naturally, they started arriving later. A couple weeks before my birthday, I texted the group saying I had made plans for the weekends before and after the actual day, and I invited the group to join either. Joe and Carrie were going to be out of town both weekends, but at their suggestion, the group planned a low-key game night on my birthday, which was a Tuesday. The Saturday before, Joe cancels. Why? He just remembered he had a concert ticket that day, and he was sorry. Carrie said, "It's not my fault, I don't even like rock concerts. Let's move it to Monday." As they knew, hubby and I had limited to no reception over the weekend. So even if I had wanted to coordinate rescheduling, it was too late. I wrote, "I'm celebrating my birthday on the day I was born with whoever wants to join." That Tuesday, another friend got sick and we ended up canceling the night altogether. For this and various more serious unrelated reasons, that week was really rough. Hubby and I decided to just cancel our next game night, saying that I was still feeling raw about everything and wasn't up for hanging out just yet. Everyone else said they understood and said to take care. Carrie asked if she could still bring me a present. I said I appreciate it, but I just need some space at the moment. She exploded. I got a lengthy text about how she doesn't like the way I've been speaking to her. They have gotten the tickets months ago and it was an honest mistake, and acting like we've done something wrong is not okay. She said my texts were aggressive and made her feel scolded, that I should have sent her a personalized message if I had a problem, and that I have no right to have had a problem anyway. At that point, I mentioned how deflating it can be to clean and prepare a house only for people to cancel, so she suggested they help by hosting the game at their house. Oh, and by the way, they would like to come by really soon with my present. The present just got brought up a lot. Later in the conversation, they accidentally copy/pasted the full dialogue with ChatGPT that they had been using to write to us. She defended this by saying she was using it to make the conversation less emotional. We could see that she had written things like, "Add in that I won't monitor her feelings." How embarrassing.
That's embarrassing.
I really did try to smooth things over, but ultimately she decided to walk away from the game. She told Joe that she was going to show grace by stepping aside so that he could maintain a friendship with us. All she asked was that he make it clear that he agrees we're being unfair, she's done nothing wrong, the problem was my trauma, and he was not going to tolerate our calling her rude or insensitive. Well, as graceful as that was of her, our friendship with Joe has also ended. Oh my God, like, could this just not have been resolved? Do we actually want to be friends with Carrie, though?
No, thank you.
I don't know. We've listed a whole lot of things that is making Carrie feel a little bit like, is that who we want in our friend group, you know? However, it doesn't stop there, apparently. The story continues. We have an update, and it came a few months later. A few months ago was just the breaking point. Really, the problem with Carrie is insufferable. She considers it a fundamental part of her personality to say and do whatever she wants, and if anyone has a problem with it, it's on them, and they have no right to comment. No, really, her core issue with me was that I made passive-aggressive comments that made her feel like she had to censor herself from saying whatever she wanted about sensitive topics like a pet passing away and grape. I will say, I can't say the word, but SA, sexual assault. When my hubby wrote, "This isn't an attack on anyone's personality, I just think it's important to remember how sometimes comments and jokes can affect people because of their experiences, whether you meant it or not." And she responded with, "That's your opinion," and left the conversation. She later insisted on being included again in the conversation against my wishes, said one more thing, then told us to never contact her again. I am very happy to report that we have not heard from Carrie ever since. It may have something to do with my blocking her on every platform, but I'll never know. Unfortunately, it has not been easy to avoid Joe. Even more unfortunately, he has wholeheartedly embraced his girlfriend's carefree attitude about people's feelings. In a world where you can be anyone you want, Joe chose to be an a-hole. His character is a shady assassin. Whenever all the characters get together to strategize fighting the latest threat in town, he either refuses to be part of the conversation or he joins and calls everyone who disagrees with him stupid. Half of our group is already over Joe's BS. He has pissed off 3 to 4 people to a point that they refuse to heal him when he goes down in the game. Before our fight, he moved cabins to stay closer to us. He's had to move back because people near us distrust him so much that his character will be killed on sight if he approaches. Several people just downright avoid him. No one seeks him out. Hubby and I might have felt bad for Joe if he had taken to following us around after we lost our puppy. Every event we've seen him, he tries to talk to us and we just walk away without a word. Wherever we go, Joe is there, silently sighting in a nearby corner within 15 minutes. We ended up unblocking him to say, "Stop harassing us," before we take formal action. He responded that we're harassing him by not including his girlfriend, something he still insists on. He went out of his way to move cabins for us and said, "If you cannot handle me being there, then that's on you." We don't know what he's hoping to accomplish with this. It's like he's playing the world's most annoying game of "I'm not touching you." This whole situation has made me question some things. Several people commented on my last post that hubby and I let a lot of things slide that we shouldn't have. And you're probably right. At the time, we had been friends with Joe for nearly a decade, so it seemed like a lot to cut ties over his latest girlfriend. Even now, I still wonder whether Joe was always this way and we just overlooked things, or if he's changed more because of Carrie. Either way, he has thoroughly burned that bridge. Sounds like a blessing in disguise, maybe. You won't have to worry about that energy being all around you if you don't want it to be, although I know he's there a lot of the times, but you can just kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Ugh, to have these issues as an adult just like gives, I literally have a headache. I have a headache from reading that. Ugh, annoying. We're too old. We're too old for this. Next story, we have a fruit theft. Who is stealing the fruit? We had just moved into a house on the outskirts of a small town, very popular with tourists and set in a valley known for its fruit orchards and wineries. We had some fruit trees in our yard, all behind a fence or a hedge, but still visible from the road. One day, the dogs were barking at something in the yard, and I went out to find a woman standing on a cooler picking our apricots. I yelled at her and she hopped off the cooler with her hands full of fruit. She said that she just wanted to treat her son to a tree-ripened fruit. She dumped the fruit into the cooler, picked it up, and ran out to her SUV. The doors were all open and a teenage boy was standing there. They sped off, but not before I managed to snap a picture of the SUV. When I went back to the tree, it had been plucked clean, except for a few apricots near the top. She must have just about filled that cooler. If she had asked me, I may have given her a few, but more likely had pointed out the numerous you pick, we pick fruit stands in the area, or pointed her to a huge apricot tree across the road, which was in public land, and also completely open for anyone to access. In any event, I seriously doubt a teenage boy was just waiting for a tree-picked apricot. When I was younger, I used to put peanut butter on the inside of my apricots. And I know it sounds disgusting, you guys, but it was delicious.
That's gross.
I would take out the pit and fill that little hole with some peanut butter. I wonder if I would like that as an adult. I went to the local police station to find out if I could press charges to trespass and theft. The desk sergeant said that technically I had a case, but the locals were told not to pursue such cases unless large quantities of fruit were harvested and serious damage to the property had occurred, because the directions from the township was that the tourists were more important than a few pounds of fruit. I was a little upset, but he said it happens all the time during fruit season. He then told me that he had taken reports from commercial growers about busloads of tourists stealing fruit from roadside orchards to the point where a dozen trees were stripped in minutes. This explains why our rural neighbors generally disliked both the tourists and the township leadership. Yeah, that sucks that they'll just get away with it. Then she added an edit for clarity and in response to many questions and suggestions. She's got some point form for us. Number 1, the dogs were in the house and they were just looking out the window. Number 2, the much favored Reddit solution, having motion controlled sprinklers. This was never considered because a lot of fruit will split if it's hit with water at the wrong time, especially when hot fruit is hit with cold water. Most orchards around us either water at night with overhead sprinklers or they use drip. I would not even think of that. I didn't even know that certain fruits when hit with cold water will split. I guess that's why, is that why grocery stores mist all their vegetables certain ways and their fruits? I'm mind blown. Number 3, social media exposure was not considered at all because we didn't really know it existed until well afterwards. And number 4, a friend of ours was a retired lawyer and he said we could try to pursue a case, but it would be expensive, and for the price of the first meeting with a lawyer, we could go to a pickup orchard and get a pickup truck full of fruit. Yeah, like I feel like that wouldn't even be worth it for the justice that you would or would not even get, you know? But maybe having a camera there and then a sign out there saying like you're being recorded, you're not allowed to touch this fruit, or having some sprinklers, not a bad idea, you know? Next story, entitled Woman Tried to Pull a Fast One. About 8 years ago, I was working at Lowe's in the flooring department. I was freshly and honorably discharged from the Army about 6 months prior to getting my job at Lowe's. This will become relevant a little later on. Granted, I hadn't worked at the store in a very long time, so I didn't know everything there that was to know about flooring and was by no means an expert. But the one thing I knew for sure was not to let customers take the folders that contained the flooring details for personal use. This was stressed to me during my training by both the computer training modules and my manager. Customers are not to take the detail that was done. This was because we often offered free flooring details and quotes, and if the customer had their free detail measurements in hand, they could simply take the measurements to another business and have them do the installation for a potentially better price. Lowe's did not want that happening. Enter the absolute unit of an entitled woman and her submissive husband. I'm busy at the flooring desk taking calls and helping customers, and this woman walks up to the desk. She claims she had a detail done recently, and you guessed it, she wants to take her folder home with her. I politely but firmly explained to her that it's against store policies for customers to take their measurements home with them. She starts causing a scene, exclaiming that those were her measurements done on her house, so they belong to her. I tell her that I'm happy to get my manager on the phone so they can better explain the policy to her and confirm that I am telling her the right information. She begins berating me, invading my personal space and getting in my face, being absolutely obnoxious, all while I'm trying to reach my manager on the phone. Why do you need to call a manager? Why do you need to call a manager? You're new here. Are you stupid or something? That's in quotes. See, I was used to people screaming in my face in the military. Didn't bother me in the slightest. Where I drew the line was when she called me stupid. I'm not usually one to pull the veteran card, but I wasn't about to let this woman walk all over me. She needed to know. I was finally in a position where I didn't have to put up with people screaming in my face, and I could tell them off. My manager was busy and wasn't answering the phone. I hung up the phone and I calmly responded, "Ma'am, I was a surgeon in the Army. I'm not some 18-year-old who you can walk all over. Just so you know, I don't need this job, and I definitely don't need you screaming in my face telling me that I'm stupid. Now, I'm happy to walk you up to the front of the store so we can speak to the manager and get this resolved. I'm here to help you. So, how can I actually help you?" Ugh, you answered better than I would have. She huffed and started cussing and making an even bigger scene as she gathered her purse and her husband, and they began walking up to customer service. I grabbed her folder, and the people who were standing in line behind her started apologizing and saying things like, "I'm so sorry you have to deal with that." I just shrugged, thanked them for their patience, and I said I would be right back. I took my sweet time walking up to the front with her. By the time I get up to the customer service desk, I spot the lady already complaining to the customer service staff. I quickly spotted my manager, who asked me what was going on. Folder in hand, I simply said, "She's trying to take the folder." My manager, a very tall, muscular woman who didn't take anyone's crap, said, "Who?" I gestured towards the Karen. My manager asked for the folder from me and said, "Okay, thank you. You can go back to flooring now." I happily handed her the folder and began comfortably strolling back to my department. As I was walking away, I heard this woman absolutely losing it. Blah, blah, blah. "I'm calling corporate. Do you know who I am? Blah, blah, blah." I just smiled, cool as a cucumber, knowing I did something right. She did not get her way. I didn't get walked all over, and I didn't lose my job. Never heard another word about it from anyone. Don't piss off the veteran working in customer service. Anyone working in customer service, for that matter. We're just trying to help you. Also, we don't make the rules. I have worked so many customer service jobs in my life. Retail, restaurants, bartending, fast food. I'm just repeating a policy. You think I wrote it? Half the policies I also think are stupid, but they're not mine to make.
I just work here, Steve.
I'm just here to get my paycheck and pay my bills, okay? Damn. Unfortunately for us, we have more Karens. But first, let's take a sip of water. It's hydration station. Cheers to not being a Karen, am I right? Down for the count. Hydrating. A new Hannah Montana shirt has entered the chat. Are you kidding me? Crazy. Got it at Urban Planet, and then they also had a Lizzie McGuire one, and I'm going to see the Hillary Duff concert. It's months and months away. So far, it's like February of 2027, but I will absolutely be wearing this to the Hillary Duff tour, 100%. This is crazy. Look how cute these are. And they were on sale, 2 for $20 together. Next story, Karen's at the station. So this story is the story of why I am on workers' compensation, which I must ask, am I the a-hole? I work for a train company, you know, passenger services from point A to point B, but this station that I was at, we have normal trains and interstate trains that depart from it. On this particular day, I was doing a morning shift and I was in a good mood that day, came in, greeted everyone, and went down to my platform. I was flagging trains, and because the the interstate trains come on this particular platform, I had to check the luggage. So the first interstate train comes in and it's late on arrival, and I've got luggage to go over and take to it. So I grab the trolley, and as I'm going out, a woman tries to get my attention, doesn't say why, just wants it, and I inform her I can't as I need to get this luggage onto that train. Now, normally this platform for this job has 2 people doing it. Today, it was just me, so it can be hectic. I load the train up and I see it off, no big deal. As I come back, I notice the group has grown and the women are demanding my attention. I put on a smile and I ask, how may I be of assistance? They demand that I check in the luggage. I tell them that I am sorry, but I can't do that. The policy states that all luggage must be checked in 30 minutes before the train is due to depart, and we are under the 30-minute mark. They go on about how they were here before the 30-minute mark, to which I state, but it was not in my possession and I can't check in luggage that's not with me, nor can I bend those rules. Well, the first lady walks away, but the others, 2 of them that were with some elderly relatives, they decide that they are going to become abusive, destructive, whip out their phones, and you guessed it, become Karens. So they restate what they said before, but it makes no difference. And they try to do the whole, so you're not going to help an old lady? To which I said, ma'am, I can't break policies. However, what I can offer you is an alternative. I can put the luggage onto the train and give it to the staff. Your family member just needs to tell the staff where they're getting off, and they will get the luggage off for them. Now, I had been trying to help them out, but I was being abused left, right, and center, and the next thing they said broke me. One of them asked, do you even have a mother? To which I responded, no, I'm actually an orphan. Why is that? Her response was, no wonder you're a terrible person. It was probably your fault. Well, at that point, my mind snapped, and that was the last bit of insult that I would take. Call me whatever you want, but if you go after my kids or my mother, I will go red. I turned around and I said, with the most anger I have ever felt, get the F off my platform. Get off now. Don't you dare ever say that to anyone else, especially an orphan. I then closed my control room door, locked myself inside as I then called for my duty manager and awaited for their arrival, shaking after that interaction. Now let me explain where these Karens were. They were standing in front of my control room. There was nowhere I could go to get away from all of them. This is why I felt like I was in fear. So as the duty manager arrived, they opened the door and asked me to go to another section of the office, which I asked in fear, mind you, please close the door. That duty manager doesn't listen and repeats what they said, so I repeat what I said to them. They claim it's okay, just go over there. So I pleaded, no, close the door for my safety, please. At this point, the duty manager closes the door and I ask, what did they tell you happened? The manager responded with, they said you were being rude to them and you swore at them. My response was, while I was shaking, did they say why? My duty manager realizes I'm not okay at this point and pretty much asks if I wanted to go home. I asked if I am being relinquished, to which their answer was yes, so I said okay. As they went to open the door, I quickly closed it, but one of the Karens stopped me and started going off on me. I turned to the other and asked, you asked me a question before. Care to repeat it? The first Karen claims her family member never said anything, but the second Karen says, I asked if you had an elderly mother. I corrected her and I said, no. You asked me, do I have a mother? To which I stated I'm an orphan. And your response was, no wonder you're a terrible person. It's probably your fault. That is why I swore at you and told you to leave. The first Karen states that they'll have my job, to which I state, you have no right to abuse anyone like that, and I won't take abuse from a bunch of Karens. I then go back inside, slam the door shut, and I'm still shaking my head. About 45 minutes to an hour after I have spoken to an employee assistance program counselor and to a workplace injury and to my union, I go upstairs to hand in my radio and my keys, and who do I find in the duty manager's office? The two Karens. So I asked my duty manager if I may speak to them in private. They answered with sure, we can speak outside, meaning they were going to leave the Karens in the office alone. Mind you, they are not allowed to be left alone in any manager's office at all. Then the Karen that asked about my mother said, "No, it's okay, we're leaving now." And as she gets up, she asks my duty manager, "Are you going to be okay in here alone with him?" I thought I was going to bite through my tongue, but I said nothing because I knew in my job, my management always sides with the customers. So the duty manager says they will be okay and they leave. I sat down to explain what happened and my duty manager realized, oh crap, you were in fear of your life from them, and finally understood the level of abuse I had received. Since then, I have been on workers' comp. That was 14 weeks ago, and my work pretty much wants to investigate me in all of this. And I'm not in their position, so I can't speak to the level of fear they had for their life. Obviously, I wasn't there. Like, that was shocking to me, the 14 weeks. Was that surprising to you guys? Let me know your thoughts and feelings, you guys. Stay classy out there, stay sassy, and you know what? I did not miss the Karen energy on my channel. It's just annoying, you know, but I will do it if you want to see it. I'll see you next time. Bye.